meeting the Walton County Code Enforcement Board to order. Would everyone please stand for the pledge to the flag and the invocation?
Charles said we got to do it.
What do you say?
Oh, that's right, God and country.
God and country,
All
thank
right.
you.
We're going to change, everybody wait. We're going to change the order. Dave, you're on.
Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings you continue to put in our lives, especially, Lord, the blessing of being able to live in this wonderful community, in this great state, in this great country that we are so blessed to be in. I pray that you would continue to bless those proceedings as you have and help us to serve you and serve each other to the very best of our ability. In your holy name we pray these things. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, announcements? I have none. Anybody out there? If not, we'll proceed to the report by the code officer on case number 14-484, Edgewater Beach Owners Association.
And
Oh, minutes. I'm sorry, I skipped right by the minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
would you use your mic so that we can all hear?
I thought I was sufficiently noisy, but okay. Now, can everybody hear?
Yes.
Okay. I skipped over the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes?
Yes.
And are there any corrections or additions that need to be made? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve them as written.
Also move.
I'll say.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the minutes are approved. Now we'll go on to case number 14-484.
and Mr. Chairman, this is a situation, this has been before you guys now, I think 3 or 4 times, and we've received another request from Mr. Gates, who represents the alleged violator. And as you guys know, he's serving in the legislature, and we are required by the statute to grant him a continuance while the legislature is in session. So, but I think hopefully next month we'll be in a different position.
Isn't the legislature going to have to continue its session?
Yes.
Unless that happens, yeah.
Well, I'm certainly glad that they're working so hard in Tallahassee that they can't take a night off to come deal with this matter. I guess we have no choice but to recognize this. We don't need to vote, right?
We can vote, but it's an automatic continuance. We would just need the chairman to sign the order. If the only other matter you could discuss, and if you'd like to vote, is if you'd want to continue it to June or July.
I think we voted for the continuance before, didn't we?
Well,
Yes, sir.
Go for
Mr.
June.
Chairman,
yeah, this is.
I think we did vote
Oh, I'm
to
sorry.
have the
I think we did
continuance
too,
until we
yeah.
heard from them.
I'm sorry, May or June. I'm
I
sorry.
was wondering, don't we have a meeting scheduled perhaps in May, right?
Yes,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Well, then I'd entertain a motion to continue it till May.
Till May.
Yeah, I don't think we have to take any action tonight.
Yes, sir. We just
Okay.
need to have the chairman sign the order.
Okay, then I'll do that. Okay, then we're on to the second item here. It's number 6, additional business, case number 10-73, 10-269, and 10-275.
And I guess just by way of background, I assume this is Mr. Patterson. Is that right? Yeah. Just to give you guys a little bit of brief history, Mr. Patterson will obviously, he's entitled to give his presentation.
Sit down.
But I'm sorry.
I'm
I'm
very
sorry.
hard of hearing, and if you don't talk in the mic, I can't hear you.
There we go. Is that better? A little bit better?
That's better.
Okay. Mr. Patterson contacted the Code Enforcement Office, I think about a couple of months back, and requested that pursuant to Florida Statute Chapter 162, that this board consider reducing the amount he owes on a lien that the board had previously imposed. Just so you guys have as much information as possible, I tried to give you just a little bit of history on the case, but I'm sure Mr. Patterson will have more documents for you to review, and of course we'll have his presentation, I'll make sure you guys have a copy of this as well. It's just the Florida statute, the communication from Mr. Patterson to Karen Owens, who's our secretary, and then I just enclosed all of the final orders from this board, and there was also an appeal taken of the Code Enforcement Board decision against Mr. Patterson, and that we have that final order in there as well. So I guess just to make it a little bit more clear, and I'm sorry, Mr. Patterson, you can come on up if you'd like.
No, I'm his son.
Okay.
Howard Patterson, and I'm his son.
You're Mark Patterson?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding there were three pieces of property, and it was heard together at the Code Enforcement Board whenever you guys originally decided this item. And I think that Mr. Mark Patterson is only on one piece of property, which is 917 Scenic Gulf Drive.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is the lien I believe he's requesting that you guys consider reducing.
And you are Mark Patterson?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And sir, if you'd like to come forward, and I'm sorry,
I'm Jane Kerrigan. I'm an attorney here with Mark.
and we'll just hand it over to you guys, however you'd like to proceed.
Would you like us to come to the microphone?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's it?
And first off, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to appear before you today. And we're here, as noted, just on 917 and just as it relates to Mark, not on any of the other two liens. And basically, we're here to make a plea to you to release Mark. Mark was not the builder of the homes. He purchased the homes from Chad, his brother, in September of 2009. And I believe the notice of violation came in February of 2010. So at the time of purchase, he was unaware of the potential violation. And since then, he has lost the home. It went into foreclosure in September of 2010 and ultimately was sold at a foreclosure sale in October of 2013. Since that, it has changed owners again, and there's now a new company that owns the home. But basically, we're here today because Mark still has the personal lien on record, and we're hoping that the board will consider releasing that lien. Basically, Mark took no part in building the building and now can do nothing about the actual violation that was found. And also during the time that he owned the home, which was a fairly short amount of time while all this was transpiring, he wasn't able to find a way to fix it, absent tearing down the structure. And at the time, it had a $1.5 million mortgage on it, so there was some concern with doing that as well. So basically, we're here today to plea to you all to release Mark's lien.
Would you go through that timeline again?
Sure. So the deed is September 18th, 2009 to Mark. I believe the notice of violation was February 23rd, 2010.
Wait, just a sec. And what happened in 2010?
The board issued a notice of violation for the property.
Okay.
And what was that violation?
The violation was setbacks and I think a building permit.
Pardon me?
It was the main violation was the violation of setbacks.
And a failure to get a building permit.
And was this the incident where the three properties were connected without a building permit?
Correct. The three properties are connected.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And is it not true that code violation wound up in court?
Yes.
And did Mr. Patterson lose that case?
Yes.
Yes. And has Mr. Patterson paid those fines and liens as a result of that court case?
No.
No.
Mr. Patterson does not have sufficient funds to pay $250.
I'm sorry?
I said Mr. Patterson does not have sufficient funds to pay $250 a day. He's 37 years old.
I'm right now talking about the lawsuit. I think there was a monetary consequence to that lawsuit, was there not?
I don't believe so, other than the amended order that was entered on July 15th, 2013.
Mr. Sullivan, it's my understanding that after the Code Enforcement Board hearing, which was held sometime in 2010,
Right.
that Mr. Patterson and his father, Howard Patterson, took an appeal of the Code Enforcement decision.
Right.
There was a little bit of confusion about the final order. It was finally entered after the appeal.
So can you tell me what the confusion was?
I think that there was an issue that perhaps it wasn't filed before the appeal was taken, so then it was filed subsequently.
You're saying the county didn't file the...
They eventually did. The Code
You're
Enforcement
saying
Board...
they delayed filing.
Right, until the appeal was final. But as it's my understanding, it wasn't a civil lawsuit related to this. It was just an appeal. of the
My
code enforcement
understanding
decision.
is that they sued so as not to have to pay the fines that accrued because of the violation. Is that true or false?
They filed an appeal, so the judge.
And they lost that appeal?
Yes, sir.
All right. And as a consequence of having lost that appeal, have they paid those fines?
You'd have to ask the applicant, but I believe that's not the case.
Wait a minute.
Who do they appeal to?
To the circuit court.
Okay, that's what I thought. So it was, all right, so that's.
Okay.
When you say suit and you're saying appeal.
Yeah, okay, whatever it was.
Yes, sir.
As I understood it, actually, Mr. Patterson sued the county and lost. Is that right?
He appealed the code enforcement board's
whatever.
decision
Yeah.
to the circuit
Okay.
court and lost.
So the bottom line question I have is, have those liens been satisfied?
No, sir.
No. And is this property that Mr. Mark Patterson has one of the houses involved in that appeal?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So he is trying separately to reduce the amount of lien against that one property.
Right. A code enforcement lien attaches to the property and to the person.
Yeah.
So I believe
But-
that's the issue.
But do I understand that he bought that property after the appeal failed?
No, sir. I don't believe that's
No.
the case.
That's just where I was going, and I'd like to go back there.
Yeah.
Mark bought the property in September of 2009 from his brother,
Correct. Chad.
Jeff,
Chad.
Chad. And Chad and his dad, Howard, they were the guys who built and joined all the houses
I
together?
believe Chad was the, Mark could speak to that.
Yes, yes, sir. My brother was the general contractor, licensed contractor in Ford, and he was the one builder on record. My brother owned the middle house, which was the 917 house, and he had some issues, and he did file for bankruptcy. I unfortunately made a decision to help my brother out, and with everything I could do, I helped him out, and he unfortunately was just not able to, and so unfortunately, I ended up losing a home also, and I ended up losing, and it's very unfortunate.
So,
Have people been sworn in yet?
No.
No.
Do they-
We haven't. And this is not a quasi-judicial decision.
Okay,
This
okay,
is,
great.
This matter is within this board's discretion.
Okay.
And so we're really just listening to.
We're trying to
Okay.
get background
Well,
about
but wait,
this.
Thank you.
before we get, just let me get the timeline straight, and then everybody can ask the questions, okay? So he bought the property from his brother in 2009. In 2010, the code board found them to be guilty as charged, and a notice of violation was filed.
Yeah, I don't know when the hearing occurred for the code enforcement.
But the notice of violation
The
occurred
notice of violation was issued February 23rd, 2010. correct.
2010. And then after that, what were the next items that you told us about?
And then, so after that would have been the appeal. So the appeal would have been entered after because he was actually named as the owner, so he owned it during the course of that.
So did he file an appeal or did his brother?
No, it was the three properties, the two outside properties were owned by his father, Howard. And Howard Patterson filed the appeal. I don't know if Mark joined in the appeal or not. I'm not
Mark
certain.
is named as one of the appellants in the appeal.
I was unaware of all this while this was going on. My brother did not realize.
Mark owned the property during the course of the appeal and all that.
Right.
I mean, so he was properly named. We're not saying that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But basically, what we are saying is that he hasn't owned the property since 2013, and so he still has this lien following him around, which makes it difficult for him, and just has it hanging over his head that we don't have any resolution on. He can't fix it now, even if he wanted to. He can't do anything to the property because he doesn't own it, and so it's as was noted, it's in the board's discretion to, either reduce the lien or
What is the amount of the lien, is it still growing?
So it's written on the amended order as $250 a day per violation. In the foreclosure proceedings, my understanding of how the foreclosure proceedings works is it actually wiped out that lien on the home. So now I presume it's still growing against. I don't know.
No, and I'm sorry, just to clarify. So whenever the property this 917 was foreclosed on Mr. Patterson, at that point the county was brought in as one of the parties to the foreclosure. The property was sold after the foreclosure was settled, and unfortunately the amount of money was not enough, was not recovered to cover the mortgage, to satisfy the mortgage and the county's lien. So at that, right, and so at this point on the property, there's no more lien on the property. It only attaches to Mr. Patterson.
So did it continue after his ownership terminated, or is it told at the time he changed it?
At the time of the mortgage foreclosure, it stopped.
The fine stopped accruing.
Yes.
So he owes $250 a day from February of 2010 until July of 2013?
Actually, I believe it's July 31st of 2012 is what the order states.
And how much money is that?
Upwards
A lot
of
of money.
$110,000 somewhere.
It's
More
seven-
money than Mark can pay.
It's 700 days or so, right?
What day?
Well, it's February 23rd
I'm
of
sorry.
2010.
Well, it starts at July 31st because they did an amended order.
Yeah, July.
Okay, so how much is it?
2012 is when the fines started.
Mhm.
correct?
And then
Yes.
So from then until when?
Till October 16th, 2013.
So that's 15 months, right?
And the reason the code enforcement held the hearing in 2010, the reason the fines didn't start accruing until 2012 is what we were discussing earlier.
The
that
appeal.
Right, they appealed it, so everything was on stay until the appeal was
Well,
decided.
when you lose an appeal, does it go back and you?
In this case, it
Picks up?
didn't because the circuit court issued a stay on any fines being accrued
Okay.
from that date.
Karen, do you have a number?
Did you say October 15th?
October 16th.
Who holds the mortgage on the thing now?
Well, now it's been
been
sold, or I believe the bank took it back after the foreclosure, so the bank owns it currently.
They sold it. They
They-
sold it again with all those liens against it.
Yes.
No, sir. Once they did the foreclosure, the liens are
I
gone.
know. What about the ones before the foreclosure?
Those are gone as well. After the foreclosure, it extinguishes all prior
I see.
liens.
450 days?
Yeah. Roughly.
I've got 221,300.
Holy mackerel. How much? 221?
300. Because it was 500 per day plus a $300 administrative.
Why was it 500?
There were two violations. One was for violating a setback, and one was for development without a
Permit, yeah.
building permits. Sorry.
Right, had they gotten the building permit, then none of this would have happened because it wouldn't have been allowed.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, I got 225 based on the number.
All right, well.
Are you trying to reduce it or eliminate it?
We'd ask for it to be eliminated, but it's in the board's discretion. Mark doesn't have 221,000 or really anywhere near that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Can you explain or go back, I guess, to when the violation occurred? I know they appealed the violation, but once the appeal was lost, why the violation wasn't corrected immediately, or what? I'm kind
Wait.
of lost there.
My understanding is there's been at least two engineers that have looked at it and said if you remove that, they won't withstand a hurricane force winds. And so I think that was the concern, is taking it out. Because it's this violation, the setback, and I wasn't a part of the case, this is just my understanding, is that they have that concrete slab that connects the three buildings.
But that meant that they knowingly just allowed the fines to accrue.
Because, well, by the time that the amended order was entered, which was July 15th, 2013, Mark was days away from getting a foreclosure order entered against him. And he is basically living day to day. He can't afford $250 a day.
Can you say that again for me slowly, please?
I said Mark can't afford to pay $250 a day. Is part of the problem,
But it stopped.
or $500 or whatever it is.
It stopped.
Which should have been taken into consideration when they failed to get a building permit and they did stuff that shouldn't have been done.
My father and my brother were the ones that did it.
But you owned the home at the time?
No.
No,
No, his brother did.
my brother did.
Okay.
And my brother filed for bankruptcy. And, my father's 74 or 75. And, I did everything I could to help my brother, who is devastated. He's got problems, issues. And all my money went towards him, to help him. I don't have much, and, I love Walton County, but I would have, I don't want to have to move, but everything, this is, there's not much of an alternative.
When you say that, I'm not clear as to what you're saying, really. I'm not,
Well, I didn't really have a part in this issue.
Did he buy the house or didn't he buy the house?
He bought the house.
There is a deed.
There is
right?
there is a deed. Doc stamps were paid. It's all
And when
recorded.
he bought the deed, when he bought the house and got the deed, he already knew about the issue? Did you assume the lien?
Yes.
Yes.
So
And
you knew there was a lien there and you
No,
assumed
no,
it when you
the
bought
the
it.
mortgage lien. I'm sorry.
Not the fine hadn't yet been accrued.
They've already said he did not know that there was a violation.
So he bought the house without knowing that there was a lien on it from code enforcement?
There was not a lien at the time.
Right.
So the lien came after he owned the house?
Correct.
Was the house
But
already
the
constructed?
stuff.
Wait, one at a time. Wait, one at a time here, okay? Gordon, go ahead.
No, I'll just say that about stuff had already been done, but it hadn't been legislated on or whatever. The problem was before you bought it, and you knew it, but they didn't convict it or whatever till
My
after.
brother who built the homes, who was record for building the homes, he went to 2 different engineers who said these homes would tumble if there was a hurricane, and 2 engineers came and they recommended that he had to do what he had to do, and he did it. And I was not aware of the time, and so this was not. I did not have anything to do with my brother or my father. That was a separate issue. And my brother who had issues, I ended up becoming involved.
But the building was, you had a permit to build the building where it is now, or is there a violation on where its setback is?
It's a violation.
No, I think, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Did the violation occur because of the setback or because without the building permit, your brother or whoever connected those 3 homes to create a hotel with connecting the 3 homes together so that people who lived in one home could go over to the next home?
No.
No?
No. The reason why my brother connected them, that was at the grade of the street, so you could not see them from the street. The reason why he did it was because of the wind load. And the force of the wind load, because they're tall, they're thin and
Sure,
tall,
sure.
that they would not hold, according to both our engineers, that the houses would tumble. Now, we did not do that to be a hotel, or we just did that for structural reasons. He did, not me, but he did. And my father and my brother are the ones who built it.
Is it true that because of all that work, you can now go from one home to the other without going?
No.
No? Okay. I think maybe we get some clarification from code.
Yeah, I was just going to give.
Let me ask
Okay.
you one quick one. When you say you keep repeating your brother had issues, can you elaborate? I mean, what kind of issues? Are they financial issues, or what are issues?
All of the above.
Okay. Well, what about? All right, I said financial. What else?
You don't need it.
I mean,
Medical. I mean,
I did just emotionally.
Okay.
Emotionally.
All right. That's good enough.
I mean.
Just to provide a little bit of clarification on the timeline, when the houses were originally permitted as 3 individual single-family homes, they were permitted, built there was a CO issued for each home. After that is when the work was conducted where they connected, for lack of a better word, they connected all three structures together. That is what the code enforcement case was about, was the encroachment into the setback and then also the work that they did without obtaining that permit. The issue with the engineer, when the engineer got involved, my understanding is the engineer's opinion was that if they removed those connections after the fact, that it would jeopardize the structural integrity of the residences, which is, I think, why the Pattersons were a little bit of a not sure how to proceed on correcting the violation without losing the home.
Although they were structurally sound individually,
point, as individual homes,
originally,
they were structurally
they
sound.
only became not so because of work they chose to do without getting permits and following rules.
Are the three homes still connected?
Yes, the violation still exists today.
And just to give you a little bit more information, I don't know if you actually want it or need it, but in January of this year, the potential purchaser of 917, who's plans on buying it from the bank, their attorney came before the Board of County Commissioners and asked that there be an abatement of any fines and for a 90-day period, which actually is just going to come up, I think, next week. So right now, there's no action being taken on 917 because the Board of County Commissioners issued, I guess, an abatement or a stay on any kind of fines if they were to accrue.
And those are the fines that attach to the property, not to Mr. Patterson.
It was so they could try to address the problems at the property or see if it was possible to.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
You've got me confused here.
Me or them?
No, you. What I've heard is that the structures were without permit, and that doesn't seem to be the case. And I've heard that they were structurally not sound individually. That's why they had to do the armory. How did they?
Okay, so the homes started out day one when they started construction. They had 3 permits, individual permits for 3 individual single-family homes on 3 separate lots. Those permits were implemented. They built the homes, passed inspections, got a CO. Building department was gone of it. End of story. Code enforcement was not involved at any point during that process. Okay. After the CO of the homes was when the additional work was conducted where they connected those homes together. Those are the structures that code enforcement are referring to, not the homes themselves.
Where does the setback come into? Is that the armory?
That's where they built the structure from house 1 to house 2. They're connected together. So the houses were built to the setback lines. The connection then impacts and impedes into the setback line to the adjacent home, and it's done on all 3 are connected. So there's two sections in the middle of the homes.
Skipping from house 1 to 2 and 2 to 3.
Yeah, I don't know if I've not physically been inside the home, so I don't know if there's a physical walkway, but there is a structural connection between each home. That is what the code enforcement case was about and what was found in violation as encroaching into the setbacks and that it was a structure built without building permits.
Jason, I think you should explain, because I'm not sure Charlotte understands, that these homes are built on pilings on the beach.
They are. They are piling supported structures.
Right. So the setback actually is into the beach, and the structural integrity comes with these houses are not sitting on dry land. They're sitting on.
Well, there's sand underneath them. They're not over water, but it's a piling built, and so the structure that's built is at the foundation level of the street. The lowest horizontal structure of the home, if that makes.
Is it a setback violation or a construction violation?
Both. There's 2 violations. It's a setback violation and a building permit violation. Which is why it's accruing $500 a day, because it's $250 per violation, and that's on each property. So hopefully.
So that number we came up with is actually times 3.
No.
Well.
Yes. He's only concerned.
Yes. Each property has $221,300 of liens attached to it. He's only here regarding 917 because that's the only property that he was the owner on at the time it was found in violation.
If the setback was, I mean, if the houses were sound before, why is taking out the petitions and make it unsound?
That's an engineer question, and I couldn't
I think
tell you.
that
That's what,
because
there has
it's
been
on the beach, the
an engineer who's
distance
made that
out of the
determination.
I know, but what I'm saying is if the three were valid before they put the thing in the middle.
Well, they
and
actually
violated
extended
toward the beach or?
Toward the
oh,
beach.
toward
No,
the beach.
I don't believe it was towards the beach. I think
Side by side.
it's in,
Side by side.
in
But
between the middle of the home.
Well, wait, guys, we got to do it one at a time, okay?
Yeah, the connection, the homes sit on the south side of Scenic Gulf Drive. So the back of the house faces the Gulf. The front of the house is facing Scenic Gulf Drive. The connection is running east and west between those homes, not north and south. So it's the encroachment didn't go any closer to the beach than the actual homes were, is my understanding. I don't believe I don't think they went further south. They just connected east and west.
How did the setback violation occur?
Because there's a side
They were all
setback.
sound.
Pardon me?
It's a side building setback is where the encroachment is, on the sides of the property.
You got to sound.
Okay, look, everybody, listen. We're not here to retry the case, okay? It is what it is. We're faced with the circumstance that this man says he was unaware of his brother's actions at the time they created this violation for him. He owned the property. Now the question is, the violation attaches to him personally. The guy's got no money. He's asking us to forgive or reduce the $221,300 that he now incurs. It's not to rehear the case again. It's to
I
decide
think what
whether
we're
or
trying
not.
to do is
trying to
understand the
understand
case.
Yes,
We're not trying to, we're just trying to understand it.
Yeah, but look, what the case was, we did at that time. The lien was then properly attached to it. We don't need to go back and figure out why it was attached and what the case was. We need to figure out if we're going to reduce the fine for this guy.
So I have a question. if you don't
Okay.
mind. Would you please repeat the procedure that is now before the county commissioners?
I'm sorry, the county commissioners considered in January?
No, what the potential owner is wanting to do.
Right.
You said earlier that in a few weeks, the county commissioners are going to have to take a look at the whole package.
Right. Well, and I didn't really state that properly. There's no fines accruing right now. That was settled in the foreclosure. I think the potential property owners were concerned or worried that there would be a new code enforcement case brought against them if they bought the property. So they were just asking the Board of County Commissioners to consider not instituting a new code case and assessing new fines until they could decide whether or not they could fix the problem. And that time period, is my understanding, will be up next week.
Okay.
So they'll have to come back before the Board of County Commissioners and give them some sort of report. Otherwise, at that point, we could institute a new code case against the new property owners.
But that doesn't concern Mark
No.
Patterson.
But what I think I just got clarified between the two of you is that his accumulation of fines stopped
At the time
when
of
the
the
foreclosure sale took place.
Yes, sir.
All right, so what does he owe totally?
$221,300.
Times two.
No, $221,300. End of sentence, okay? So now our task is to decide whether we need to saddle this guy with a $221,000 debt for the rest of his life for the actions that he claims he was not aware of at the time that they occurred.
I don't know that it's fair to us for you to say, are we going to saddle him with something? I mean, it's not like we're going to.
Okay, well, excuse my choice of words then. Should the fine remain attached to this man? Okay.
Can I ask a question about the father and the brother and the other two properties? What happened to the liens against the other two properties?
It's my understanding, the other two properties, we have 925 Scenic Gulf Drive. That has a foreclosure case that's still pending. And so the county was also brought into that, but it's not been finalized.
And are fines still accumulating?
Yes, on that one. And then 915 Scenic Gulf Drive, I did some research this afternoon. I couldn't find any information that property has been foreclosed on yet or is in the process of being foreclosed.
And do we know who owns those two properties?
I believe it's Mark Patterson's father, Howard Patterson.
He owns both of the other buildings?
Yes, the the other house is in foreclosure. But my father and my mother own the other house.
Right.
Okay.
And that's probably the one that they might be able to keep, but we're unsure right now because
915, no foreclosure on that one, but 925, it's in the process of being
So we
foreclosed.
may very well, I mean, it's good potential that we would see your father back here doing the same thing. You're going
This
to
is-
later that.
Yes, sir. This is between Howard and Chad. My brother was a general contractor, licensed contractor, and my father was, they were the ones that were the builders, right? I stepped in to help my brother.
Well, I understand.
And I didn't
remember
know.
that.
Well,
All I'm
unlike the other
asking is
houses.
whatever we do here, it'd be precedent for when your father comes back to.
It's like the people that are fixing up the middle house that they bought, the middle house from the bank. They're in there remodeling something that they know that there's a fine on, that there will be, or may or may not be a fine on. They bought into a house that they knew that there were problems in. I bought into a house that I did not know that there was a problem. So I think there's,
Can I ask where you were when all this was occurring?
I was in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where we're from. And so, I just came down, and I was under, I didn't really understand.
You were not involved in the reconstruction.
I was not involved, and I wish I was not involved.
How much did you, or is this appropriate to ask, how much did you pony up to help your brother out? I mean, I guess you did this in the manner you did this was in purchasing the house from him, right?
It was, I helped my brother out financially.
Through purchasing the house, or in some?
Just kind of helping him out because I knew that he had problems and issues, and then he filed for bankruptcy. But I just kind of helped him out, and he gave me the house over, and
Assumed the mortgage, I guess.
I assumed I'm not on the mortgage. I mean, I guess that would, I'm not liable for the mortgage. I was not liable for the mortgage. The note.
Mm-hmm.
But he still was the one that got it. And so I just came down to help him to go through the process of him, but it did turn out to.
Do you remember the day?
But you did own the property at one time?
Yes, I did take stamps for that.
Okay.
And because I
Okay, if no one has any further questions, I just suggest that we need to talk among ourselves and figure out what we ought to do about this. And so, does anyone have any more?
Does staff have any more input?
It's my understanding the staff has no recommendation one way or another. This is completely up to you guys. It's within your discretion.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you then.
Oh,
Don't
thank
go
you.
away, we'll talk about it here and figure out what we're going to do. Does anyone want to make a opening remark here?
I'll start off. He's essentially throwing himself upon the mercy of the court here, which, I mean, I'm inclined to show mercy, but I guess I'm not really comfortable with, one, as I mentioned before, for setting kind of precedent here for a similar action to come. And two, I guess I'm not totally comfortable with, I mean, I know the code here has all of the financials of the foreclosures and the bankruptcies and all of that. Are they documented? I mean, are they all in this and everything they're telling us is exactly the way it went down?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and
As far as 917 is concerned, from what I can tell.
Okay, so Mark here, I guess, is basically has been documented. He does not have any assets to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, that I don't know. I mean, we just have to rely on Mr.
Did
Patterson.
you go through bankruptcy?
that was my brother, Chad Patterson.
Okay. All right.
Can I ask another question, or are you finished?
Yeah.
Did you own this house during any of the construction period that took place?
No, not during the construction period.
So the construction, the remodeling, and the violations that already occurred when you bought the house?
All that occurred before I bought the house, before all these subjects, all these issues came up.
So the construction was finished, but the violation had not occurred?
I believe
I don't believe code enforcement had a case.
Pardon me?
on the I don't believe we had a case on the property at the time
That he bought?
that he bought it. So I don't know, not to say that it hadn't occurred, but there was no active code cases. We were not aware of it.
Okay. You said you bought the house in 2009?
Okay. In
Yes?
September,
Okay.
yes, sir.
And when was the code violation?
The,
February of 2010.
Yeah.
the hearing
Yeah.
occurred in February of 2010.
The hearing?
No, the notice of violation was
Right.
February of
The
2010.
notice of violation, okay.
February 23rd of 2010.
So as he said, there was no, he was unaware of any violation until February of 2010. That's what I-
And then the only officers I had at that time that was recommended from the engineer, the only options that my brother was recommended are, there was no solution at that point in time that I could do besides tear down the house with a mortgage and a bank. There was no issues.
At what time was that?
I'm just saying, like yesterday, or not yesterday, but when I owned it, there was no solution that I could do to redeem apology to you all.
After the violation?
Because, it had a mortgage, we couldn't tear down the house, or I couldn't tear down the house. There was nothing that I could do to satisfy, the bank wouldn't hear it, nobody would hear my side of the situation. And so there was just nothing that I could do. I exhausted efforts but I couldn't afford to tear down the house or to do,
Let me ask you one more question. Are you in a position to put anything down against this lien? Do you intend to pay any of this lien?
Well, Jane, under the statute,
There is a provision in section 162.092C that says if the board determines that the violation is, I believe, I can pull up the actual statute. If the code enforcement board finds the violation to be irreparable or irreversible in nature, the fine is limited to $5,000.
That's under 2A.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and say, as representing you guys, I wouldn't be comfortable you guys considering that because the original order did not make that finding. So I think it would be inappropriate for you guys now to come back and make that finding.
With the 5,000 fine?
Well, no, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Have you paid anything at all on this lien?
well, I was hoping I could make payments for the $5,000 fine.
Have you paid anything at all to this point toward the lien?
There was no action towards that. There was no action
No
towards.
payment set up?
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Just to be clear, you guys can reduce this lien to 0 if you want to, or to a lesser amount. So
But your previous statement was they don't rely on that statute.
do not rely on section
We did not
2A.
incorporate it at all into
Exactly.
the original final.
Right. I would, what we would do is the final order would rely on 2C rather than 2A.
What's 2C?
I'm sorry, if you have your statute, it's subparagraph.
It's in front of you, Gordon.
See, I know it, but okay. 2C.
This is being brought before you
Okay,
under paragraph 2C.
Okay, so anything we do is gonna be acceptable to the,
Right. You could reduce it to $5,000 as a practical matter, but I wouldn't want us to rely on paragraph 2A
Right.
because that requires a finding that wasn't made at the time of the initial hearing.
Okay, so let's go back to
That makes
trying to find a resolution here, okay?
so you'd be happy with 5,000? I've been there.
Sydney, and as the collection procedures here, I mean,
We can do
like
it.
the foreclosure, does he have a judgment hanging over his head?
He just has a judgment against
So if
him.
he can't pay it, if he doesn't come in the end, he's got that judgment hanging over his head just till he either pays it off or
Right.
whatever.
And how long has it been hanging over his head now?
Since 2013, is that what we said? No, I'm sorry, 2012.
2012, okay. And nothing's been paid on it so far.
Okay. Anybody got a suggestion?
I'd be for doing away with all of it. I mean, it's not hanging over him like that. I wouldn't want that on me. And I don't think it was his fault, really. I mean, naturally, he's got some culpability in it, but looks like he's in a mess to me.
Yeah. Well, what would you suggest?
I suggest we do away with it.
Do away with it totally.
Yes, sir.
Or reduce the amount to 0?
I would, but I mean, that's just my suggestion. I think the fines are too stiff in the first place, really.
Okay.
Before we continue on that, has the father attempted to pay anything against this lien?
It's my understanding that he has
Well,
not.
Well, he doesn't know anything.
The dad doesn't owe
He
anything
doesn't
on
owe
this
anything.
case.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, he was helping his brother and his father out, and they stuck him with $200,000.
No, his father also owned the property at the time, 917.
Well, let me speak on that, please. That that fine is not being removed from the other properties. It's just me. And so the fine still
I understand.
levies against my father.
I understand.
And, you know.
So, but can I ask you what your father's position on this is with you regarding the money that you owe? Is his opinion that's all you owe it, and it's got nothing to do with your brother or your father?
Well, my father, you understand my brother's situation, that he filed bankruptcy. And my father's situation, he's 75. And
What's that to do with anything?
well, no, I'm just saying that. I'm just saying that there's
You're getting in my face now.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. Mine too.
there's very, you know, that we understand that we're probably going to lose it all. We understand it, and we understand it. I mean, House 3 is in foreclosure right now as we speak, and we understand it, and we understand that we're not going to, you know, we came from Atlanta, you know, that was retirement money, everything that they had their savings on, and we're probably going to lose all of it, but you know, but it was still, but that's them, not me.
If we do something to help you, are we gonna have 2 more people coming up here, your neighbors, wanting the same thing?
Probably.
I would think so.
The neighbors who bought it, they bought in knowing, they paid $200,000 for that home. 917, they paid $200,000 for that beach home. They bought that home for $200,000 knowing that there was problems with that house. They bought in knowing that there was problems. That's the reason why they bought it for $200,000, and they're remodeling it now. And so,
They got a permit?
no, they're doing interior, so they have to have a permit for interior work. But I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad at them, and I hope them will. You know.
I don't know what's fair. I mean, that's,
But this
Y'all-
is not. This is
y'all
not.
been on here longer than I have.
The fine still stays on the property for my parents and my brother. But I'm just saying that I did not know intentions that that I was buying into these horrible situations.
I have a, go ahead.
Wait,
It's
Richard,
my
go.
understanding that his father stands to fall into the same situation where he's going to owe these fines that have accrued. And I got to say, if I was him and I saw my son go and ask for relief, and you know, I'd
It's
certainly.
a different set of circumstances.
I understand that. I'm not saying that it would happen. I'm just, you know, his question was, will your father be coming? And I'm
Yeah, but
saying,
look, this is what happens to us all the time. This is the case we're hearing. We're
Right,
not
I
hearing
agree.
about the neighbor. We're not hearing about the dad. We're not hearing about the guy that bought the house. We're talking about this guy.
I was responding to his question.
So we need to decide whether he's sincere in his comments that he didn't know what was coming down and he bought into a can of worms for which he's now on the hook $221,300. Or
Did we clarify, can I ask, after you bought the home in when, 2009? Is that when you bought it?
yeah.
I don't know.
Was there any construction going on in those 3 homes, including your home? after you-
Robert, listen to what I
Well, it's a
said.
violation of the code in his.
He's answered that several
He's
times.
answered the question several times.
So I missed it. I'm over 76. Could you ask him to repeat
That's
that?
a good excuse.
Okay, and your question
The
is,
question is, after you became the owner of the house, did the continued construction in your home in violation of the code while you were the owner?
During that time frame, I bought into that home, not knowing what was going on.
So the answer is
with
yes.
that. Yes,
Okay.
yes,
That's all
sir.
right.
The being, you know.
Thank you.
But the point is, my father coming in here and being the next one in here, house 3 is being foreclosed on. And so it's pretty likely that the house 1 is going to be
I
foreclosed
got
on too.
another question.
And that's going to be the next situation. So there's going to be new owners, probably foreclosed homes. And so, then that's not, but that's just an unfortunate thing that happens in life. And
Where were you when this was all going on? Were you in Atlanta?
I was in Atlanta, that's where I'm from. So I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm down here, and, I'm just working, and so.
Okay, Gordon,
Why didn't the finance company inherit those fines that you got? Was it personal fines or was it fines against the building? Usually if they foreclose, a government lien is usually upheld.
Sidney, you could answer that question.
What was it? I'm sorry.
Why did the
Government
fine,
Go ahead.
why did the lien attach to him personally, not just to the
buyer.
property?
Because that's what our statute says. Under the code enforcement statute, a lien is against the property and against the person who's the violator.
I know what I'm saying is, when they foreclosed on it, didn't the mortgage company inherit the fines?
No, whenever the foreclosure happens, it extinguishes all liens on the property.
But government liens
Ours,
usually are accepted.
Not a code enforcement lien.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay,
all I got.
so look, we've got Dave saying that he should reduce.
What am I saying?
Well, you tell me what you're saying. Okay, don't let me put words in your mouth, okay?
I don't know. I don't know.
Gordon,
Did you?
No, you make the motion. No, that wasn't a motion. I won't see what everybody thinks, but if you think 5,000, that's fine, or I'll vote for either one.
I'll make a motion so we can get it going.
well, no, let's just talk about it and then we'll make the motion, okay? What do you
Talk
think?
about what?
The fine or the appropriate action that we ought to take.
I mean, I'd be inclined to not necessarily agree, but acquiesce and go with what Gordon says too. I mean, like I said, it's just.
I'm disinclined to wipe everything out. That's just how I feel.
And why is that? Because you don't believe that he's telling
There's a lot. I don't. There are a lot of things that just don't feel right to me. That I have issues when we go through this whole process, we make a decision, and then for this reason or that reason, they come back in and go, well, gosh, can I be excused from this, or I didn't know, or there's a variety of reasons. I mean, to be really upfront about it, I don't feel like a good case has been presented to me that's laid it out well, that's convinced me that he's necessarily deserving of having this whole thing wiped out. I mean, I found some of the answers a little bit unclear and vague. Just the question he just asked. I mean, instead of answering yes, he started down this road of, well,
Okay.
So it's that kind of thing that puts me in this place that I'm not comfortable with everything that I'm hearing, and that I want to just wipe it all out.
Okay, Robert?
Well, to agree with what he said, this board's been doing its job, but if you ask, there's about well over $1 million in outstanding fines that have not been paid by people who have come before this board and told to pay the fine, and they just walk away and never do. And the county has not chased that money.
Well,
I will make a motion at this time, though, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that he be ordered to pay 10% of the outstanding fine.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Then we're going to discuss it. Yes.
Sure.
A moment ago, when you were explaining the statute, how the statute read that the fine goes toward the property and the violator.
The property owner.
Just the property, okay, property owner. So the fact that he actually committed the
Right.
violation.
It's the property owner.
And that's based on the time of the notice? Is that where it's told?
No, the time of our final order, whoever owns the property at that time.
All right, that answers.
All right. Well, let me say that, first of all, the object of being on this board is to hear the very things that you say you don't want to hear. That's why we're here. That's not why.
Who said they didn't want to hear something?
Well, you just said, didn't you?
No.
That you're tired of hearing people come back to the board.
No, I didn't
to
say I
ask-
was tired of hearing. I said that it's something that happens a lot. I'm not, I'm here for whatever, and I don't have a problem listening to it again and again. I'm not saying I'm tired of it.
Okay, well, and again, our role here is to get compliance. We're not an income-producing part of the county revenue stream. We're not policemen with a speed trap. We're here to try to get people to do what they need to do. So I don't see that how many fines are outstanding against people for other cases has anything at all to do with the case that's in front of us.
I agree.
Okay, so now we've got a motion to make the fine 10% of the $221,300. In other words, $22,130. And we have a second, and we have discussed it, and I'm going to take a vote on that question.
Well, we
Charlotte.
haven't given a chance to discuss. I would like to find out, did they ever pay for the adjudication of the cost of having the hearing that night?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I would like that tacked on in full.
Which I believe at the time was $300.
$300.
I mean, this is kind of where it kind of goes back to me again. I don't feel like there's been anything on their part that has shown a desire to comply, do what they've been asked to, just pay for the hearing of the, there's not been anything that's made me feel warm and fuzzy about how this has gone down.
Okay, Mark, you want to say something?
Yes, sir. Thanks, Richard and Tom. Thank you. There was nothing that I can do. I cannot tear out the sidewalks or the side things, placements. I cannot do that. The mortgage company would not allow that. I cannot tear down the homes. I cannot do. I came here. I don't have $22,000. I don't have that. I don't have enough money to tear down the house. I don't have enough money to go out there and I don't have enough money to, even if the banks would allow that, and y'all would allow that. Y'all wouldn't allow us to tear it out. We asked for that, to tear out the easements, but y'all would not allow that. I got caught into a situation that I had no idea that I was getting caught up into. And I don't have the money to do this, and I don't have the money to pay $22,000 in fines that I didn't create, that had nothing to do with. Tom made a point that there probably are people who can leave the county or the state and not pay y'all. But I do live in Walton County, and I consider this home, but there's no way that I can pay y'all $22,000. I mean, I was, the $5,000, I was hoping I could make payments on. I don't have $22,000. I didn't have the money to tear out my house, even though the bank wouldn't allow that. The easements, I don't have the money to tear out easements that y'all would not allow us to do.
Okay.
Or me to do.
Okay.
There's just nothing that I can do.
Okay,
It's
look.
irreplaceable. Then
Okay.
there's nothing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to call the question. There's a motion on the floor, and it is to fine him $22,130. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands. All those opposed? All right, the motion fails. I'll entertain a new motion.
I'll make a motion with finding 5,000.
And I'm sorry, just to be clear, we're going to reduce the fine amount to $5,000.
Yes.
Can you pay that?
Yes, sir.
Can I?
Yes, sir.
And you would like to add the
I would like
$300?
to add the $300 for the court case.
Can you pay 5,300?
Thank y'all so much.
Well, wait, it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. Don't get too carried away. How quickly could you pay back the $5,300?
I can,
In a year?
no, I can do it sooner. I can do it whenever y'all would want me to do it. I can go to my uncle, and my uncle could loan me the money. He's a doctor, and he's my favorite uncle, and he can do it.
Okay, so now we've got a motion. Do we have a motion?
I made a motion 5,300.
Okay,
Reduce
and
it
a
to-
second?
Well, you want to put on a tack on a time?
Wait, let him. Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, he says that. Tack on what he
If we do
said.
this, if we reduce it, there's no time on it. We're just going to reduce it.
Just going to reduce it.
And then it's up to him to come through.
Yes.
We can have time.
Could we do it that, hey, we'll reduce it, but the fine needs to be paid by such and such a day, or the reduction doesn't hold?
No, I'm afraid
Can't do that.
No, sir.
So we're just going to rely on his good faith.
Yes.
Very interesting. No, I don't want to hear it. Okay. All right, so I've got the motion, And do I have a second?
Yes, you do.
All right, to reduce the fine to $5,300 with the understanding that Mr. Mark Patterson is going to pay this fine. And if there's no further discussion, I'm going to call this question. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. So the fine has been reduced to $5,300, and to show good faith to this organization and to the county, it would certainly benefit you to pay that money as soon as possible.
And Mr. Patterson, would your attorney like to prepare the order? Sure. Okay. And I'll give you my contact information. You can get it to me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, is there anything else that we need to talk about?
Could I have a point of order, please?
Yes.
How many of us are supposed to be voting members of the board?
What?
Voting members of this
I
board?
think everyone on this board is voting member. There's no
I think we have
alternate tonight.
5 plus 2 alternates, is that correct?
5 and 2 alternates. And Alan's one of the alternates, and who's the other one?
Gordon.
Gordon's an alternate.
I'm an alternate.
And
Okay,
there are
but
6 of us voting tonight.
right, but even so, it would have carried if Gordon's vote wasn't counted.
I'm just making the point of order, Mr. Chairman.
So I don't get to vote on these things, is that right? As an alternate, I don't get to vote?
That's correct.
I've never quite understood that. Do you
Why do I
know?
need to show up?
I'll have to think on
That's
that one.
questions.
Okay, would you let us know at the
Yeah,
next
is that
meeting?
right?
Because
Yes, sir.
that's always been unclear.
There are 5 of us here.
It's my and I will look into this for all of us, so we will have clarification. But I think the idea of the alternate is because we have to have so many people we have to have a contractor, we have to have somebody in real estate, all of that, and the alternates are just.
Not only that, but sometimes every now and then somebody's conscience bothers them and they have to recuse themselves.
Correct.
And we won't know it until it's here.
Yes, ma'am. But I will get us a clear answer
So
by the next
my vote
meeting.
didn't count, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that.
I always had it before.
Well, I can't even make the could I make the motion
Well,
then?
that may be an issue too.
Yeah.
Then I move,
No.
then if that's the case, I inherit his motion.
And why don't you second it?
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
That way, there's no question that we did something funny.
Yes.
Well, take a vote, though.
And I would like to
Okay,
have
so
the.
then let's revote it, okay?
I
Now the
move-
motion has been made. Please,
Okay, I move that we
reduce the.
reduce his fine from the $221,300 to $5,000 plus a $300 unpaid fee for the hearing that you had last time where this was incurred. So that's a total of $5,300 that is now subject to the property in his personal lien, or to his personal lien
Yes,
now.
personally. And you'll second that?
I say.
Okay, all those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
I'm still
Okay,
in
the
favor
motion
of it.
carries.
I'm still in favor
Sorry,
of it. I
Gordon.
can't vote.
Okay. Hearing no further business, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Before you adjourn,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get I'd like to discuss a situation, and I think we have to discuss this while we're still in session because we can't talk about things when we're not in session. Is that correct? In the sunshine law for the four,
What
the
are
five
we
of
going
us
to
to
talk
talk?
about?
You cannot discuss any matters that will come before this
Right.
board.
All right, so we can't, but I can discuss things that are affecting the code enforcement board that have nothing to do with the case before the board?
If you're suggesting the magistrate,
That's exactly what it was.
I was told we can't discuss that as a board. That's something that we as citizens can talk about, but it's not an official
But
matter
it, all
for
right,
this
so
board.
it is not a board issue, so we can
Right.
adjourn and talk about it?
Yeah,
That's
you can
correct.
talk amongst yourselves, it's like,
So, Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn and stay and talk about it.
okay, can we do that? Do we need to walk out there?
That's fine. I would encourage all of you to limit your discussions outside of an open meeting because you could get into
Right.
tricky territory. So
Well, that's
I
right. That's
I
why,
would-
that's why I think we should do it while we're having the meeting.
But we
we
were
can't
told
not.
not
We're
to.
allowed to talk to each other in a meeting.
Yeah, but you understand, our role is that of judge, okay? Our role is not to determine whether or not the board has the right
I
to exist
understand
in
that,
its
but
present
the
form or
point
some
I'm getting
other
at
form.
is that we could not discuss the issue if we're not in session. even though it has nothing to do with the case.
You and I can talk about it all we
You
like.
can discuss the issue. I
Yeah.
just, I
Because it won't come
caution
before
all
the
of you
board.
to be extremely careful with any kind of conversations you have about each other. I would caution all of you to be careful about private conversations you have with each other, just because of the impression that there might be some impropriety. That's all.
How will they be able to discuss it?
You won't, you bend over.
No, listen, I asked this question, and Mark Davis said to me, he said, I'll let you know when the county commission is going to hear it. It went through planning. Did you read that one?
Yes.
And the planning commission voted to retain the board, not the,
That's correct.
And if you would all like, I will send you each an email telling you the date that it'll be before the Board of County
right,
Commissioners.
there's a meeting at Defuniak, and then there's one down here.
Yes, sir.
Please, thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
So you don't think it's proper for us to discuss the political issues here?
Mr. Sullivan, you can discuss issues that aren't related to a matter that comes before the board, but again, I just caution you with any kind of discussions you have with each other outside of the meeting. That's all.
Does anybody want to talk about what happened? And why it happened? And what might happen?
No, I
I
don't.
think we know.
No, certainly not here.
Okay.
But not after what Cindy just advised us.
Well, I just went through an hour with Clay Atkinson, who said, I can talk to anybody except other members of the board, unless other members of the board are in a meeting. And two of us together in a room constitute a meeting. So the question is, the only time I think that we can legally discuss situations with one another is while we're in session.
Yeah, but listen, the board's attorney, Mark Davis,
Chairman got other.
told me that I can't discuss it here. And I got to listen to my attorney.
With whom?
With any of us, as a board, we cannot talk about whether or not we deserve to be a board of citizens or a special magistrate. That's not something to be talked about while we're in session.
Yeah, okay.
That's what our attorney advised us. I'm not going to go against his advice. Okay, so,
I won't ask the
I
other
make a
attorney
motion
to
that
go
we
against
adjourn
the
the
My
meeting.
opinion, Robert, is if there's discussion to be had, we need to bring it to
I need a
public
second.
hearing
I need a
whenever
second.
it occurs and let the county commission hear it. So
Okay.
we can talk all we want in front of them.
okay, I've got a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? This meeting is adjourned.
Who
Hand
seconded
me
it?
this.
Yeah.
Did we vote?
I didn't hear a second.
We didn't
Or a
say,
vote?
You don't have to.
you don't?
No,
Okay.
a motion and a second will end it.
I'm learning.
You made the motion, the second, and voted.
Did you pass that to the secretary?